Welcome to today's environmental session. My name is Gabriela De Cruz. I'm a conservation diver and I've been working in Goa with regards to Goa's coral reefs as well as its local dolphin population. Today's session will be on how we can conserve Goa's waterways and how we can get communities to be more responsible and involved in conserving of our local waterways. Today being Father's Day, it's an interesting topic for us because it's all about how we can actually nurture our waterways and how we need to respect our waterways and what we can possibly do to improve the situation of our waterways in Goa, because they are our lifeline and they are our support system, and there's lots that we have to do towards preserving them. Our panel consists of individuals who've been working around estuarine areas, around riverine areas in Goa. To my extreme left, we have architect Tallulah De Silva. She is a practicing architect as well as a planner, and she's also a polymath. She does a lot of things for Goa, and she's been actively involved with a lot of student communities as well as different planning boards in helping develop Panjim city as well as other parts of Goa. We have Sudeep to my left. He has been very actively involved with a lot of work, carrying on work done by late Father Bismarck. And his project involves a boat that he takes around to different islands, riverine islands in Goa, and trying to conserve these islands and these water bodies by getting people more involved, as well as in looking at illegalities that are found around these islands. He will talk about his project in a little bit. To my right, I have Vishal. He's involved in a very interesting project where he's designed a boat with some architecture students, and he takes them around creeks in Goa, trying to get students involved in these areas. And we have Lyndon, who's been part of the tourism sector in Goa for the past 25 years, and he was also involved in bringing one of the first boats into Goa, which is now present on the Shapura River, which is a houseboat, if I'm not mistaken.
The first Kerala houseboat that was built in Goa.
Kerala houseboat in Goa. Yeah. So today's discussion will mainly revolve around what we can possibly do to improve Goa's waterways and how we can get communities more involved. This is to bring into perspective the national move by the centre to sort of nationalize all of Goa's or India's interstate rivers. 6 of Goa's rivers will actually be nationalized through this act, and it is a move made to sort of increase development along these riverine areas, but the question of what kind of development has not really been put into perspective. So if we look at it, should we as a community, as people of Goa, be allowed to develop our own waterways, to put onto the panel to discuss how we'd like to have our waterways, or is it that the centre should just decide, we should have, say, jetties or ports or high scale development, whereas maybe we don't really need that kind of infrastructure, maybe we need more people oriented infrastructure. So to begin my conversation, I would like to ask everyone on the panel how they value their water bodies. So a lot of the people have been working with these ecosystems, and we all value these ecosystems differently. There are different ecosystem services that water bodies provide us, from our rivers and our creeks and our lakes. So Tallulah, would you like to explain what is it to you, why do you value our rivers and streams?
So basically I'll go back to my childhood and the way I saw and used or took resources from the water. So I remember times when my dad used to take me to the Galjibaga river. He would swim across, I would just accompany him. Then we would go to the beach, he would swim there. And there was this slow discovery of the wealth that is there, the ecological wealth that is there, and something that we should not tamper with or disturb, because there is a role that every organism has to play, and when we disturb it, there is an imbalance to our own detriment. So I think that needs to be understood very well. Then as children, so one is of course the ecological wealth that is there, we need to respect that. Second is our water bodies, the way we use them. There are a lot of backwaters which we use for transport. So we travel, Goa has a tradition of ferry crossings before the bridges came, So that again is very special and underdeveloped right now. But as children, I remember we would, sometimes the canoe would get stuck because of low tide and we would have to get out and then walk across. There was a value and an experience in that is unforgettable. Okay, then our travel journeys by ferries itself, with a lot of people around, you get to meet your neighbors, you get to meet your fellow citizens. So there again, there is people value. So there's ecological wealth, ecological value, and then people value. I think that's my connection, and I think it's like when you go to the forest, you are entering into, you are a guest. So I think similarly, when you look at water, you are a guest. So you need to respect what is there.
Right. Shruti, would you like to explain with living at Sankashte, what do you feel? Why is it that people are connected?
Basically, civilizations over the time have flourished and built themselves up on the banks of river everywhere, from Nile to Indus to Volga to Euphrates and Tigris. So in case of our little Goa, small Goa, the island is divided across by the rivers, fisheries, tributaries, and it all together forms the life cycle of human beings living around them. People are born on the island, they are brought up on the island, they survive and sustain themselves by eating the fish which are caught in the estuaries and tributaries and the main course of the river. And when they die, either they are burnt on the island or they are buried in the island. So that relationship with river, being born in between the rivers and dying and getting buried in between the rivers, it gives a very strong sense of connectivity for the people with the river, and that's why, come what may, for people who are living in islands, especially Diwad, in Sant Estevam, in Southern, in Vashi, it's a way of life, and rivers are considered as good as mothers. Like there is a very strong connectivity, very strong bond, and particularly when it comes to me, I started my journey by swimming across the river Mandovi. So once it happened, and twice and thrice, and it kept on happening. So whenever you are coming from the other end out of the river, there is a sense of gratitude that I am still alive. So that bond or the emotional bond which is formed with the river and people, nobody will throw garbage into the river. Nobody will do nonsense in the river. So that is an inculcation which is passed from generation to generation, and that's how it happens.
So as an urbanist, do you feel that water bodies and spaces around water are integral to, say, the development of a city? Is it something that adds value to the city or a space?
So I like your question, what value we put on rivers. So we have great infrastructure for gamblers. Great, they should have their piece of entertainment. But what is the infrastructure for people fishing? You'll find them off the Mandovi bridge in very precarious situations, with traffic whizzing past, trying to get some fish. There's absolutely no effort to make jetties or ramps in the river or steps for people to approach it. Nothing for small boats. You all see this like great infrastructure for water sports and casinos, and very little to do with the occupation of people and their livelihoods along the river. And when, especially in the backwaters, we have such amazing examples of indigenous engineering, the bands, the sluice gates, the kazans, and this whole wealth is totally ignored. So I grew up in Orissa, and we are just surrounded by water bodies, a lot of fresh water around, and all summer, all holidays were spent jumping into streams or swimming in lakes, dams, canoeing in the tribal canoes. And now I've lived in Goa for 7 years intermittently, about 4 years continuously. And I wanted to have the same experience here, have a boat of my own. And it started with Talula, inviting me to do a workshop with architecture students. And so this is my little boat, literally, made out of paper first and then scaled to made out of a tin sheet. It's probably the world's cheapest and simplest boat, and children can row it. And that's become one way to provide access to the waters. So when we do a class and we ask how many people have been on a boat, besides the ferry boats, there are very few, very small percentage. And I think if we can encourage more people to just enjoy the beautiful sights and sounds, the light, the reflections, the ripples, the flora, the fauna, it's just tranquil, it's just amazing, it's magical. and we can all relate it to our childhood experiences and growing up amongst water bodies. And so I think that value system, if we can bring back, and Talula does it through education, to taking children. I'm trying to encourage more children and young people or people of all ages to come with me, make your own boat. I'm really happy to make this boat for you. You can have one, and makes it easier and easier for you to enjoy, especially the backwaters where there's no big waves, there's no grave danger, there's no traffic of like big launches throwing waves at you. So I think it can just become very nice if we can all enjoy it and create that relationship between nature. Yeah.
I've been here for 25 years, so I have a few things to say because I've been involved with commercialization and development and of water and operating a lot of tourism on water. I don't buy the fact that development and and marine conservation don't go hand in hand or that it'll choke. Because development allows you to bring in quality money that can fund conservation and marine conservation. If you take destinations like Maldives and Jamaica, where they've gone hugely into the development space, but sustainable development. The unfortunate part is we don't have an organized system. We lack a sensible ministry and bureaucracy. If one of them are sensible, it will work. If both are not sensible in that area of work, it cannot work. If we can allow casinos to soil the Mandovi River on headlines of newspapers with no action taken, then we are just blinding our eyes and our marine tourism, and it remains on the surface, our conservation about CRZ and building buildings. Because even projects which are environmentally friendly hotel projects are not getting permissions in Goa. The reason is, if you're going 100% by the book, you're not willing to pay money. If you're not paying money, you don't get a permission. If you're not going by the book, you have to pay money, you're aware of it, your permission comes in. So we are choking sustainable development and sustainable tourism in Goa. And for that, we need to have a really smart bureaucracy or a tourism board which will get good quality tourists to come to Goa to sustain marine tourism, where the boat, and you need education, where boat people and tourism people realize you can't destroy the waters with the kind of fishing which was forcefully stopped, like using dynamites and things like that. So I've always been an advocate of saying that education and marine tourism and tourism should be together in a syllabus instead of fighting over medium of education, medium of instruction. But people are not aware. Our taxi problem exists because the taxi drivers are not aware of the bigger picture of tourism. From 92 till today, tourism has actually, numbers have gone up, the quality has gone down. We have become a little mini low-budget Moscow. Our entire European market has been practically wiped out. This is Russia. Russians have no conservation by and large in their system because their upbringing has been survival. So they are not thinking of that. They are happy to drink a bottle of Shivas and throw it in the sea after drinking. West European won't do it. So, this whole thing has to be corrected with the people, and I'm really happy something like this is happening because this will create awareness that development is good if it's done properly with the right people. I love what he said about the ripples in the water and all. I love all that. But you need quality people who enjoy it, not someone who sees the ripples and throws his mineral water bottle out of the boat. So quality comes with development. It goes hand in hand. If you separate them, you'll choke both.
I think I absolutely support that, and I would like to add that the places that I've visited, where ecology is so much valued, like Galapagos Islands, and even closer home, if you look at Andamans and Nicobar, everybody who's into the tourism business takes ownership and pride that look, we have this unique thing, our water bodies are unique, everything is unique, and they will stop you from throwing garbage.
Because they are educated about it from school.
Yeah. So that ownership is required.
So Talula, you've been doing work with communities and you had some ideas about how we can incorporate local traditional activities along rivers into sort of tourism activities. Can you tell us a little more about it?
So the key here is, like Lyndon said, talk about sustainable modules. So when you look at any intervention in any given area, especially along water bodies, you need to look at traditional occupations, people who've been engaged in traditional occupations, and see if they can be the prime important players, such that, see, they have been intimately involved with the water and the land, and you are going as an outsider, right? So if they are involved and they are the decision makers, then all others have to fit in. you know. So he or she dictates how it is to be done, and there are already good models in Goa. If you look at Verle and Angan, the way it is set up, again it's run by the people as a cooperative. So all these as a cooperative can be multiplied and replicated all across, where people become the main stakeholders and the main people who run a particular.
And we tour operators should sustain them by giving them quality tourism. But you're not going to get Russian and Maharashtra and Karnataka jeep tourism to go on these kind of trips. It's our local Goans who will enjoy it, and quality international guests. I've taken National Geographic on boat trips around Shorao Island and Salim Ali Park. At that time, the Mandovi was clean. People were swimming across the Mandovi. Today, the casinos dictate terms, not the government. You know, if you're allowing such amount of garbage to be disposed into the sea, as for what I read, I'm not sure of it, but this is what came in the papers, and there's no action taken 2 days later, then, you know, we are blindfolding everybody.
Yeah. And like Sudeep said, no, it's our mother. And you know, we should have that gratitude. So how can anybody be allowed to, you know, throw garbage or anything, you know, to pollute it?
I think the reason why that's happening though is because we have a disconnect from our water
Yes.
bodies. Like a lot of the times, as Sudeep mentioned earlier, is Panjim has become so urbanized that we forget that we actually have such amazing water bodies around. And we've sort of transitioned them from being healthy creeks to nallas, because that's all we see them as drainage systems. So could you maybe enlighten us on how you think the creeks have been devalued and destroyed? Like, what are the main reasons of pollution that you've seen? I mean, Vishal could also comment.
So I think the crux of the matter is that disconnect. We are all migrating to the cities or towns, and we are disconnecting from what is there. Yeah. So we are not valuing the ecological assets that are there. And so if you look at people living along water bodies, what is happening now? So the population is increasing, correct? And people are expanding. There are people who are migrating to the cities, staying on rent along these. So while somebody is providing accommodation to, let's say, people who are migrating, okay, whether it's migration at the top level or at the bottom level, there are no basic facilities provided, okay? So there's no garbage management system, there is no sewage management system. So inadvertently, people are dumping their sewage into a stormwater drain or dumping it directly into the river. And it is at all levels. Like sometimes people say, oh, people living in slum-like areas are the ones who are dumping because they're dirty. You can see the living conditions are dirty. But I would say that the people living in gated communities and everybody everywhere else, let's say other stakeholders, restaurants and everything, they are also polluting, but in a sophisticated manner. So their sewage is coming through a septic tank and a soak pit, but eventually going into the water body, and people who are living and don't have the facilities are directly dumping it. So everybody is responsible for it. And the reason why they are doing it is because they don't value the water. Because right now we get our water from the tap, you know, which is filtered coming from a distance. We get all these things in a different package. You go to the supermarket, you buy packaged food, you don't know the connection that it's also coming from the field next door. So this connection with nature is lost somewhere, and therefore people are not valuing what they have. Yeah.
So to just add to that, you know, these are our commons. The natural resources, our minerals, our rivers, these are our commons. And when they are managed as commons and people became stakeholders, and it's not a top-down management where some bodies appointed to look after it. So world over conservation, whether it be like turtles or whether it be sanctuaries, when local people have got involved and there's a certain sustainable model created within that, it's not just economic, you know, so we have to connect this to the lives and livelihoods of people. So lives meaning like sustainability. First you have to be able to live and enjoy it and take pride that you have that in your life, you know. And yes, it can become part of your livelihood, which is very sustainable. You give and take in equal amounts. The amount you take, you replant, you reseed the waters with fish, you make conservation areas where fish can spawn, you plant trees, you manage the barns, and that's how it has been traditionally done in Goa, like regulating the water body, letting fish spawn, protecting the fields from it. So that was a really kind of equal relationship with respect. You take, live and give. So this community model going from bottom up is, I think, very essential, because this kind of like pushing some kind of agenda from top, even it's a Gujar, it doesn't stick. often enough, and then becomes you want to be a police state beating people and fining people, and it doesn't work, that kind of a thing. So the more we connect this to people, that will be better.
But this seems like a very ideal situation. But what if, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to work with authorities. So is there some sort of way in which you think we should develop a policy for our backwaters, for the development of our backwaters? I mean, now if you look at the nationalization of rivers, that's like a sort of a copy-paste thing where whatever projects they feel they would like to have will be set up. But do you feel that there should be a policy that Goans can sit around a table and actually say, okay, this is how we'd like to develop, we put ideas in for tourism?
When you said this is a policy where we Goans would like to do it, I think it should be a policy where you have certain experienced intellects to do it. Because even if you see what the Goans have done, like what has happened at Seolim River, Shapura River, you start building a stupid, ugly jetty without any planning, then you stop the jetty because of some law, and then you leave this half-baked, stupid structure, destroyed the look, the aesthetics of the place and the environment together. So you need the government to be put under check that, you know, one MLA can't say, this is my constituency, build one jetty. Someone says we can put casinos there and the matter starts. You start dumping cement and steel into the river and destroy the whole thing. And then you also make it an eyesore for people who've loved that river. I've been operating a boat on that river for the past 10 years. And now, what are you all doing? And people will be bulldozed when they decide to move these casino boats to Seolim, to Shapura. They are not going to listen to anyone. So someone has to get together and tell them that you've got to be sensible. Otherwise, people are just doing things on whims and fancies.
How to get these people together is the key.
I want to add here that, you know, this was under the JNNURM mission, which I had the opportunity to work on, where the module of public participation was made mandatory. You know, so yeah, it was made mandatory at that time. So basically any project that is proposed to come up at a particular place, you need to have a stakeholder meeting, you need people's participation, and that's happening in Gram Sabhas, but many a time they are also sabotaged, you know. So people need to know what exactly is coming, they need to know how it is going to benefit them, and then it has to be put out in the open so that they can also come up with the suggestions, because it's their land, it's their space. They are able to better understand in what is a better model that can come up in a particular place. So I think the key is people's participation, and it has to be done in the true sense of the term, you know, not in a sabotage or in a, you know.
And the biggest thing that or people like you, environmentalists or movements, can spearhead right now, which is going to be an impending disaster, is shifting these ugly steel tubs from Mandovi to Shapura River. That's one of our most beautiful rivers. You'll destroy the marine life, you'll destroy the noise pollution, the quality of people going onto that road, throwing bottles out of their cars and jeeps. The whole belt will get destroyed if the casinos move to Shapura. And that has to be, that's the plan, from what I understand. That has to be stopped like now. Because once that happens, you've destroyed Mandovi and it's going to stop that. Zuari
happen
because
the people are now conscious. Casinos came to Goa
but the casinos
quite a lot of years earlier. Now it will not happen because people will not allow it to happen. They understand what you are saying. That is exactly taken up.
Yeah, but they allowed that jetty to start getting built there. A huge jetty.
No, the jetty has been also stopped because of public pressure.
But now it's been stopped. They should not let it start because you've already done damage.
I remember that.
And then it remains like that. Like the flyover on Keri. Have you seen the Keri Beach flyover?
Ugliest structure
the most ugliest structure in the country on one of the most beautiful beaches in the country, and it's not being used. It's not being used. It's stopped halfway and you have this huge, humongous, ugly cement structure just...
So that's what is happening, no? Under the aegis of a certain development board or a body, they are proposing these projects without people's participation. So people don't have a say and they are bulldozing all these projects which just don't make sense. So they are going to remain as, you know, white elephants then. You know, so I think that public participation is the key.
I think an NGO should fight a case to remove that bridge if it's not being used.
And the policy should mandate it.
That's already in process. Already in process.
It is in process.
Goa Foundation has already
to remove the complete.
Yeah, initiated the process for that.
Yeah, because you can't look at it anymore. You know, it's such an ugly. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it's one of the most ugly beaches in the country, thanks to this unused bridge.
No, that bridge was particularly built or constructed to benefit or facilitate the golf course, which was going to happen. Now, when no golf course, automatically no bridge. So that's how it is left incomplete, and it will be removed very soon along with time.
I hope so.
I met this engineer who recently commented, that if you look at all these bridges, they're all built in a new material, which is concrete. If you look at buildings nowadays also, all buildings are built in concrete. Now we know that concrete has a very short life. We are not going to have those structures live for more than 50 years. So we are spending so much amount of money building, these, knowing that in some years we have to build more. So it just does not make sense if you have a long, it's not sustainable at all.
So just to connect a few dots which have come up, Talur spoke about this migrant population. And this is a phenomenon in cities of growing citizens but shrinking citizenship. So when, you come and you don't have belonging, then how do you participate? And there is also a little angst from the locals and kind of thing. So the community, once it's fractured, then nobody is taking responsibility. So if it's a village pond where there's separate time for women to bathe, there's also a portion where the cattle is bathed, there is fish there. The water hyacinth is cleaned annually, the barns are repaired. You will never see misuse of it because it's a community resource. So we are talking about a situation when that is somehow fractured now. We know Goa has an amazing legacy of managing its water bodies. So this fracture has happened, right? So in one way, this healing can happen by getting communities to participate. Like you have to reschool ourselves. Like, Talula takes children to those people. You talk to fishermen. You talk to like the traditional people who make these barns and sluice gates. And if you don't incorporate them in this model and you just make cement bridges, where the mud was used and where wood was used and local materials were used. And if you just kind of rupture that, then there is very little, and then this public participation remains like a show and it doesn't become a true thing, because if you announce it, how many people are actually participating and are only vested interest parties. And in community work always happens, the dominant people in the community express their views louder and larger than the marginalized. So there has to be a very sensitive way of incorporating this. So there are policies and people understand, but again somehow it doesn't filter down to the bottom. Right. And in Goa, there's amazing examples of people working, conserving otters, conserving turtles, crocodiles, and more and more communities in places where they are engaging with more and more communities. And that gives me a glimmer of hope. So if we start to reschool people and make them feel that they have not been displaced, that their model of living is completely now out of the window and a new one has to come in because there's no more money in the traditional occupations. It's better to sell off your fields by letting salt water come in and sell it to a hotel, and you're seeing islands being taken over. We're seeing golf courses and this kind of tourism plans coming in. So one way is to work really humbly with the people and with their ideas, make them part of the decision making. And I've seen this once the people get enlightened in this way, how Father Bismarck was working, is dangerous for the politicians. It is suddenly becomes political capital, enlightened people, and then you'll see politicians doing the line, if people want it, then I will build this. If people don't want, they're just waiting for somebody to rescue, then they want to sell off and give me a fat lump sum so my 3 generations can just live off it, and and you've seen wherever this big development have come in, farmers getting paid out, they've become drunks, they've bought big cars, and they're the social structures, the fabric of society completely destroyed. So one way is, that's the hope I see. Yeah.
That happens with development. It happened with the Red Indians in America. Yeah. But now we have much more media, we've got much more education, we've got much more mediums of transferring information, so we can use intelligence to continue doing it in a proper way. Even a golf course, me as a tourism businessman, I would think is good for Goa, because right now what Goa needs is, we need anything good to bring back quality tourists. The kind of tourists we are getting are not quality anymore. Even the Indians are now going to other places because of cleanliness and all the bad publicity that's coming out regularly. So things like this, bring your water from Maharashtra, bring it from the river or whatever, don't use the local water bodies, water depletion methods, and fund your golf course. But there are certain things that are needed. We have 9-hole golf course in South Goa at the Lalit, at the Leela, things that are done within land when there was not enough information available for the whole of Goa to know this is happening. But they haven't destroyed the places. So the golf course in the north also I don't think will destroy Goa, but if it's done with the right systematics and right systems in place, I think it will be good for Goa to bring up, we need to bring up our brand as a brand that brings the best tourists in the country. We need to be the south of France of India. And that is like south of France, they still maintain their beaches and they still maintain